At 0622 hours on June 8, 2026, the Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree transmitted 11 words that immediately sent commodity markets, defense ministries, and shipping operations centers into emergency mode. We declare a complete and total ban on Israeli maritime navigation in the Red Sea. Every vessel linked to Israel by flag, by cargo contract, by port destination was now a legitimate military target, effective immediately. No grace period, no geographic boundary specified. The announcement came directly on top of the overnight Iran-Israel bilateral strikes, on top of Operation Nasser's ballistic missile barrage on central Israel, on top of a Houthi missile aimed at Tel Aviv that morning that sirens had screamed about across Israel's Shephelah lowlands. The world was already on fire. The Houthis had just handed it a can of gasoline. What Yahya Saree did not mention in his statement was what was already sailing through the Bab el-Mandeb 60 nautical miles to his south. The MV Leviathan Star was a 290-meter LNG carrier, Maltese flag, carrying a cargo of liquefied natural gas contracted through a Qatari terminal under a supply agreement with an Israeli energy firm. Technically not Israeli flagged, technically civilian, but on every Houthi intelligence database compiled since 2024, the ship was flagged in red. Israeli economic nexus clear. The vessel had entered the northern approach to the Bab el-Mandeb at 0531 hours, transiting at 15 knots under the escort of the USS Cole DDG-67, the same Arleigh Burke-class destroyer that had been struck by an al-Qaeda suicide boat in this same general body of water 26 years earlier. Cole's captain knew the history of his ship. He also knew, from the threat picture CENTCOM had distributed before this transit began, that Houthi anti-ship missile batteries on Yemen's western coast had been at elevated readiness for 72 hours. The transit plan called for maximum speed through the 30-kilometer bottleneck, tight, close escort geometry, and active AN/SPY-1D radar throughout. There was no option to divert. There was no alternate route. The Hormuz Passage was disrupted from the east. The Red Sea was the last bypass. Today, it had just been declared a war zone. At 0634 hours, 12 minutes after Saree's announcement, the USS Cole's SPY-1D radar registered 6 simultaneous inbound contacts bearing 047 degrees northeast, range 38 nautical miles, speed Mach 0.85, altitude 40 meters above the wave surface. Nor anti-ship cruise missiles, the Iranian-supplied variant the Houthis had been using since 2023, with a sea-skimming terminal profile designed to stay below surface radar horizon until the last 8 nautical miles. The Aegis Combat System classified all 6 contacts in 0.9 seconds and immediately began distributing intercept solutions. At the same time, Cole's surface search radar painted 4 fast-moving surface contacts detaching from the Yemeni coastline at 38 knots. Unmanned surface vehicles, explosive-laden drone boats, the same platform profile that had been used to attack vessels transiting this exact corridor in 2025. The Houthis had launched everything simultaneously. They had been watching the Leviathan Star since it entered the strait. The ban announcement had been the starting gun. Cole's captain had 4 minutes. Do you think a single destroyer can hold the line against 6 cruise missiles and 4 drone boats simultaneously in a 30-kilometer bottleneck with an LNG tanker alongside her? Comment 1. If you believe the Aegis system can handle it, because what happened next is something the U.S. Navy trained for but has never executed at this speed in a live combat environment. The Aegis system on USS Cole fired 4 SM-2M Block 3B missiles from the Mark 41 VLS at 06:35:08 hours. Not one per target, but paired solutions on the 2 lead missiles, the ones with the tightest impact timelines. The SM-2S climbed, arced, and dove. 2 NOR missiles died at 22 nautical miles, their seeker head shredded by kinetic intercept. Cole then ripple-fired 2 more SM-2s at the 3rd and 4th contacts. Intercept at 14 nautical miles clean kills both. Missile 5 was taken by the Phalanx Block 1BC IWS at 2.4 nautical miles, a wall of 20mm tungsten at 4,500 rounds per minute, detonating the cruise missile 800 meters off the Leviathan star's stern quarter. The 6th missile got through the phalanx burst, not because the system failed, because at the exact moment the phalanx was firing on Missile 5, one of the 4 drone boats came inside 600 meters of Cole's hull, and the CIWS swiveled automatically toward the closer proximity threat. Missile 6 impacted the water 190 meters off the Leviathan star's bow, a near miss that sent a geyser of white water 30 meters into the air and shook the LNG tanker hard enough to throw crew members to the deck. No hull breach, no fire, but 190 meters. Cole's 76mm gun system was already engaging the drone boats. The first 2 were destroyed at 400 meters. The third took 2 direct hits and continued forward, its damaged guidance system causing it to veer left and impact against Cole's hull plating at 06:37, 22 hours below the waterline on the port side. The explosion punched a 1.8-meter breach in the outer hull. No critical system flooding, no loss of propulsion. But the destroyer had just taken a hit while simultaneously defending an LNG tanker in the world's most dangerous 30-kilometer stretch of water. The 4th drone boat was destroyed by a Hellfire missile launched from Cole's embarked MH-60R helicopter, which had been airborne since before the transit began, holding position at 200 feet, waiting for exactly this. At 06:39 hours, the Leviathan star cleared the southern exit of the Bab el-Mandeb into the Gulf of Aden, international waters. Outside the Houthis' most effective missile envelope, the tanker's master reduced speed to 12 knots and requested damage assessment from the Cole's escort team. The LNG cargo was intact, no fires, no radiation of heat from the cryogenic tanks that would have indicated rupture. The ship had survived the first live fire enforcement of the Houthi Red Sea ban, and the world's last maritime bypass around the Hormuz crisis had just been turned into a combat zone. The response came from the sky 40 minutes later. 2 F/A-18F. Super Hornets from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, operating at the southern edge of the Red Sea, were cleared hot against the Houthi anti-ship missile battery that had fired on Cole and the Leviathan Star. The battery position, a coastal installation in the hills above the Yemeni port of Mocha, was struck with 4 GBU 32 JDAMs at 07:18 hours. Satellite imagery confirmed the battery's radar, and launch infrastructure were destroyed. The Houthis' Western Coast Missile Command issued no statement about the strike. They did post a message on Telegram at 07:40 hours, reaffirming the total ban and adding, "We will proceed from escalation to escalation. All options are available to our armed forces." This is where we are right now, as this video is being recorded. The Strait of Hormuz, throttled by 4 months of Iran war, is the eastern gateway to the Persian Gulf, 15% of the world's oil supply. The Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb, the western gateway connecting the Gulf of Aden to Suez, 12% of global trade. As of this morning, both choke points are simultaneously under threat. The Houthis have not said whether their ban extends to vessels that call at Israeli ports but are not Israeli flagged. Major international shipping lines are already issuing instructions to ships approaching the Red Sea to halt and await further guidance. Brent crude opened this morning at $95.78. This afternoon, it moved higher. The last time both choke points were simultaneously constrained, in March 2026, the global shipping insurance market priced the risk at levels not seen since the 1967 Suez Crisis. The USS Cole, the same ship that survived a bomb in her side in Aden Harbor in October 2000, has a breach in her hull in the same waters tonight. She is still operational. She is still on patrol. The Leviathan star is proceeding toward its destination. The cargo will arrive, for now. But here is what this morning changes. Every shipping company that returned to the Red Sea route over the past 6 weeks, lured back by falling insurance premiums and the apparent stabilization of the ceasefire, is now diverting again. Rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope adds 14 days and $2 million per transit to a container ship's voyage. Multiply that by the thousands of transits per month through the Red Sea. This is not a military crisis, it is a global economic one, triggered by 11 words from a man in Sana'a at 06:22 hours this morning. The Houthis did not sink the Leviathan star. They did not sink USS Cole. They did not need to. All they needed to do was pull the trigger, survive the U.S. Navy's response, and let the insurance market and the shipping lines do the rest of the work for them. And that, precisely, is why this is the most cost-effective military operation anyone in the Middle East has executed in the last 4 months. What do you think? Can the U.S. Navy keep the Red Sea open while simultaneously managing the Hormuz crisis and supporting Israel's air campaign against Iran? Comment below. If this breakdown caught something the headlines missed, hit like and subscribe now. Because the next video on what the Houthis mean by all options available and what their submarine weapons capability actually looks like is coming soon. The Red Sea is not calm tonight.